I think I didn't do anything wrong, just what anyone would do when they feel ignored at home. But now, my husband's lawyer sent me papers, and my family is looking at me like I'm the villain. All this started because I said I was out with the girls, but he saw me get dropped off by someone else. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Lenora Vane, and I'm 31 years old. I work as a dental receptionist at Bright Smile Clinic downtown, and I've been married to Elliot for 9 years. We have an 8-year-old daughter named Maya, who's the light of my life. At least, that's what I used to think before everything went sideways. It was a Thursday evening in October when I decided I needed some excitement in my life. Elliot had been working late again, buried in his software engineering projects, barely acknowledging my existence when he came home. He'd grunt hello, kiss Maya's forehead, and disappear into his home office until bedtime. I felt invisible, unappreciated, like I was just another piece of furniture in our suburban home. That's when Travis Monroe entered the picture. He's a sales representative for a dental supply company, 34 years old with charming green eyes and a smile that made my heart skip. Unlike my husband, Travis actually listened when I talked. He complimented my hair, noticed when I wore a new dress, and made me feel like a woman again instead of just a wife and mother. "You look beautiful today, Lenora," Travis said that Thursday afternoon as he delivered supplies to our clinic. "That blue dress really brings out your eyes." I felt my cheeks flush. "Thank you, Travis. You always know just what to say." "How about dinner tonight? I know this great little bistro downtown. You deserve to be treated like the amazing woman you are." My heart raced. This was it, my chance to feel alive again. "I'd love to, but I'll need to tell my husband something." "Girls' night out," Travis suggested with a wink. "Women do it all the time." When I got home that evening, Elliot was already at his computer, typing away. Maya was doing homework at the kitchen table, her dark hair falling across her face as she concentrated on math problems. "Hey, honey," I called out to Elliot. "I'm going out for girls' night tonight. Sophie and the girls want to catch up at that new bistro on 5th Street. Elliot barely looked up from his screen. "Okay, have fun. Don't stay out too late." That was it. No questions, no interest in my plans, no suggestion that we spend the evening together instead. His indifference stung, but it also made what I was about to do feel more justified. I kissed Maya goodbye and told her to be good for Daddy. As I walked out the door, I felt a thrill of rebellion. For once, I was doing something for myself. The bistro was perfect, dim lighting, intimate booths, and soft jazz playing in the background. Travis had reserved a corner table where we could talk without being overheard. He looked handsome in his navy blazer, and the way he stood when I approached made me feel like royalty. "You look stunning," he said, pulling out my chair. "Elliot's a lucky man." "Sometimes I wonder if he even notices," I replied, settling into my seat. Over dinner, Travis listened as I poured out my frustrations about my marriage. How Elliot had become distant and cold. How he prioritized work over family time. How I felt like I was dying inside from neglect. "You deserve so much better," Travis said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "A woman like you should be cherished, not ignored." His touch sent electricity through my body. When was the last time Elliot had held my hand or looked at me with desire in his eyes? We talked for hours, sharing stories about our childhoods, our dreams, our disappointments. Travis made me laugh in ways I hadn't in years. When he suggested we continue the conversation at his apartment, I didn't hesitate. His place was a modern loft with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. We sat on his leather couch, drinking wine and talking about everything and nothing. When he leaned in to kiss me, I didn't pull away. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered against my lips. "I've never been more sure of anything," I breathed. What happened next felt like awakening from a long, dreamless sleep. Travis made me feel desired, beautiful, alive. In his arms, I remembered who I used to be before I became just another suburban housewife. It was nearly midnight when Travis drove me home in his black BMW. As we pulled into my driveway, I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed it away. I deserved this happiness. I deserved to feel wanted. "When can I see you again?" Travis asked as I gathered my purse. "Soon," I promised, leaning over to kiss him goodnight. I practically floated to my front door, my body still humming from the evening's excitement. The house was dark except for a single lamp in the living room. I assumed Elliot had gone to bed hours ago. I was wrong. As I fumbled with my keys, I caught a glimpse of movement in our bedroom window. The curtain fell back into place quickly, but I was certain someone had been watching. My heart hammered as I let myself inside. The house was silent. I kicked off my heels and tiptoed upstairs, pausing outside our bedroom door. I could hear Elliot's steady breathing from inside. Or was he pretending to be asleep? I slipped into the bathroom to wash off my makeup and change into pajamas, studying my reflection in the mirror. My lips were slightly swollen from kissing, my hair mussed despite my attempts to smooth it. Did I look different? Could Elliot tell what I'd been doing? When I finally slid into bed beside my husband, he didn't stir. But something felt different in the darkness between us, a tension that hadn't been there before. I lay awake for hours, replaying every moment of the evening, Travis's hands on my skin, his whispered words of desire, the way he made me feel like the center of his universe. This was what I'd been missing, what Elliot had failed to give me. I didn't feel guilty. I felt alive. The next morning, I woke up with a smile on my face for the first time in months. Elliot was already downstairs making coffee, dressed in his usual khakis and button-down shirt. Maya sat at the kitchen table eating cereal, her school backpack ready by the door. "Morning, beautiful family," I said cheerfully, kissing Maya's head and reaching for a coffee mug. "How was girls' night?" Elliot asked without looking at me. "Oh, it was wonderful. We went to that new bistro on 5th Street. You know, the one with the amazing salmon. Sophie was telling us about her new promotion, and Jennifer just got engaged. We talked for hours." I rattled off details I'd rehearsed in my head, mixing truth with fiction. The bistro part was true, at least. "That's nice," Elliot replied flatly. "I'm glad you had fun." Maya looked up from her cereal. "Mummy, why didn't you tell me goodnight when you got home?" My stomach clenched. "You were sleeping, sweetheart. I didn't want to wake you." But I heard a car door slam. It woke me up and I looked out my window, but I didn't see Aunt Sophie's car. Elliot's hand paused halfway to his coffee mug. "What kind of car did you see, Maya?" "A black one. It looked fancy, like the ones on TV." I forced a laugh. "Oh, honey, you were probably half asleep and confused. Sophie borrowed her boyfriend's car because hers is in the shop. You know how dark it was. All cars look black at night." Maya shrugged and went back to her cereal, but I caught Elliot watching me with an expression I couldn't read. At work that morning, I couldn't stop thinking about Travis. Every time the clinic door chimed, I hoped it would be him. When he finally appeared around 11 with a delivery of dental supplies, my heart soared. "Good morning, beautiful," he said quietly as he set boxes on the reception counter. "I haven't stopped thinking about last night." "Me neither," I whispered, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "When can I see you again?" "I don't know. I need to be careful." Sophie Chen, my best friend and the clinic's dental hygienist, emerged from the back room at that moment. "Morning, Travis. How's business?" "Can't complain," he replied smoothly, his professional demeanor sliding into place. "How's that new whitening system working out for you?" As Sophie and Travis discussed dental equipment, I studied my friend's face. Did she suspect anything? Sophie had always been perceptive, sometimes annoyingly so. After Travis left, Sophie lingered at my desk. "He's certainly charming, isn't he?" "Who, Travis, I guess? I hadn't really noticed." Sophie raised an eyebrow. "Really? Because you were practically glowing when he walked in." Don't be ridiculous, I laughed. I'm a happily married woman. Are you, though? Sophie's voice was gentle but probing. You've seemed unhappy lately, Lenora. Distant. I felt defensive. My marriage is fine. Elliot and I are just going through a busy period with work and Maya's school activities. If you say so, just be careful, okay? Office romances can get messy. There's no office romance, I snapped. Travis is a client, nothing more. Sophie held up her hands in surrender. Okay, I'm sorry I brought it up. But I could see the doubt in her eyes, and it made me angry. Why couldn't I have one thing that was mine without everyone scrutinizing it? That afternoon, I decided to solidify my alibi. I called my sister Vera, who lived across town. Hey, Vera, I need a favor. Sure, what's up? If anyone asks, you were with me and the girls last night at dinner. We went to that bistro on 5th Street. There was a pause. Lenora, what's going on? Nothing's going on. I had dinner with a friend, and Elliot might get the wrong idea if he knew it was just the two of us. You know how men can be. Vera laughed. Oh my God, you're having an affair. I knew it. Who is he? I'm not having an affair, I protested, though my cheeks burned. It was just dinner, but Elliot's been so paranoid and controlling lately. He'd probably accuse me of cheating even though nothing happened. Okay. If anyone asks, we had girls' night, but I want details later. Next, I called my mother, Linda. Mum, if Elliot calls and asks about last night, just tell him I was out with the girls, okay? Why would Elliot call me about that? He's been acting strange lately. Suspicious. I think he's going through some kind of midlife crisis or something. He's imagining problems that don't exist. Oh, honey, men can be so insecure sometimes. Of course I'll back you up. You deserve to have fun with your friends. With my family on board, I felt more confident. I even went so far as to take a selfie in the clinic bathroom, making sure the timestamp would show the right date. I'd post it later with a caption about amazing girls' night. But when I got home that evening, something felt off. Elliot was in the kitchen making dinner, something he rarely did on weekdays. Maya was at the table doing homework again, but she kept glancing between her parents with worried eyes. This is nice, I said, setting down my purse. What's the occasion? Can't a husband cook dinner for his family without an occasion? Elliot replied, but his tone was strained. During dinner, he asked casual questions about my day, my work, my plans for the weekend. Normal conversation, but something in his manner made me nervous. Maya, why don't you go watch TV while Mum and I clean up? Elliot suggested after we'd finished eating. Once our daughter was out of earshot, Elliot turned to me. Lenora, is everything okay between us? Of course. Why would you ask that? You've seemed distant lately, working late, going out with friends more often. I'm wondering if there's something you want to talk about. I felt a flash of anger. So now I'm not allowed to have a social life. I work hard all day, come home and take care of Maya, manage the household. God forbid I want to spend an evening with my friends. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Elliot? Because it sounds like you're accusing me of something. He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm trying to understand why my wife feels like a stranger. Maybe because my husband treats me like one, I shot back. When was the last time you asked about my day and actually listened to the answer? When was the last time you complimented me or showed any interest in my life? Elliot's face fell. You're right. I've been distracted with work. I'm sorry. His apology should have made me feel guilty, but instead, it felt like validation. I was justified in seeking attention elsewhere because my husband had neglected me first. I appreciate that, I said, softening my tone. I just need you to trust me. We're married, Elliot. I would never do anything to hurt our family. He nodded, but I caught him studying my face like he was looking for something. Later that night, as I pretended to sleep beside him, I wondered what he was thinking in the darkness. My phone buzzed with a text from Travis. Can't stop thinking about you. When can we meet again? I smiled and typed back. Soon. I'll figure something out. The following weekend, my mother Linda invited the whole family over for Sunday dinner. It was a tradition she'd maintained for years, gathering her children and grandchildren around her dining room table for pot roast and gossip. Usually, I looked forward to these gatherings, but today I felt on edge. Elliot's parents, Gerald and Ruth Vane, were also invited. They were good people, but Gerald had always been stern and judgmental, while Ruth tried to keep peace at any cost. I worried they might sense something was different about me. We arrived at Mum's house in separate cars, because Elliot had spent the morning at his office, catching up on a project. More likely, he was avoiding family time, which gave me another reason to feel justified in my recent choices. Lenora, my sister Vera practically bounced over to hug me. At 29, she was still single and living her best life, something our mother constantly worried about. You look amazing. That new haircut is so flattering. I'd gotten my hair styled that morning, hoping to see Travis at some point during the week. Thanks, V. You look great, too. Vera lowered her voice conspiratorially. So, tell me about this mystery man. There is no mystery man, I hissed, glancing around to make sure no one overheard. Come on, you can tell me. I promise I won't judge. Before I could respond, Gerald Vane's booming voice filled the room. There's my favorite daughter-in-law. I forced a smile as Elliot's father embraced me. Gerald was a retired police officer who'd spent 30 years reading people's lies and deceptions. If anyone would see through my act, it would be him. Hello, Gerald. You're looking well. Can't complain. How's work treating you? Oh, you know how it is. Same old routine, but I love working with people, helping them feel comfortable at the dentist. Ruth appeared beside her husband, her grey hair perfectly styled, and her smile warm but tired. Lenora, dear, how are you holding up? Elliot mentioned you've been working late recently. My stomach clenched. What exactly had Elliot told his parents? Just busy season, I replied lightly. Lots of insurance claims to process before the end of the year. During dinner, I found myself the center of attention in ways that made me uncomfortable. Mom kept praising me for taking time for yourself and not losing your identity in marriage. Vera made pointed comments about how some husbands don't appreciate what they have. Even Maya seemed to be watching me more closely than usual. Mommy, can you help me with my science project this week? Maya asked as she picked at her mashed potatoes. Of course, sweetheart. What's it about? We have to study family trees. I need to interview everyone about their childhood and stuff. Gerald leaned forward with interest. That sounds like a wonderful project. I love talking about the old days. I want to ask everyone about their first jobs and how they met their husbands and wives, Maya continued. Mrs. Peterson says families should be honest with each other about everything. I nearly choked on my wine. Well, that's very wise of Mrs. Peterson. Honesty is the foundation of any good relationship, Gerald said, his eyes meeting mine across the table. Without trust, you don't have anything worth keeping. The conversation moved on, but I felt like Gerald's words were directed specifically at me. Was I being paranoid, or did Elliot's father suspect something? After dinner, while the men watched football and Maya played with her cousins, the women gathered in the kitchen to clean up. This was usually my favorite part of family gatherings, gossiping and laughing with Mom, Vera, and Ruth. Today, it felt like walking through a minefield. You know, Lenora, Ruth said as she dried dishes, marriage goes through seasons. Sometimes couples grow apart before they grow back together. What do you mean? I asked, though I suspected I knew where this was heading. Elliot seems troubled lately, distracted. Gerald thinks he might be having some kind of crisis. Vera jumped to my defense. Maybe he should pay more attention to his wife instead of burying himself in work all the time. That's not fair, Ruth replied gently. Elliot works hard to provide for his family. Sometimes men show love through sacrifice rather than words. Well, sometimes women need more than just a paycheck, I said, my voice sharper than intended. Sometimes we need to feel valued and appreciated. Mom nodded emphatically. Exactly. Lenora has every right to have her own interests and friendships. If Elliot can't handle his wife having a social life, that's his problem. I don't think anyone's suggesting Lenora shouldn't have friends, Ruth said carefully, but marriage requires communication. If there are problems, they should be addressed together. What problems? I demanded. I went out to dinner with friends. Since when is that a crime? The kitchen fell silent. I realized I'd raised my voice and sounded defensive over something that should have been innocent. Of course it's not a crime, dear, Ruth said softly. I just think... You just think what? That I'm lying? That I'm doing something wrong? Lenora, Mom interjected. Ruth didn't say that. She didn't have to. I can see it in her face. Everyone's looking at me like I'm some kind of criminal because I had dinner with my friends. Vera put her arm around me. Hey, calm down. No one's attacking you. But I felt attacked. I felt judged and misunderstood by people who should have been supporting me. Elliot's neglect had driven me to seek companionship elsewhere, and now his family was making me feel guilty for trying to be happy. I think I need some air, I announced, stepping out onto Mum's back porch. The October evening was crisp, and I wrapped my arms around myself as I tried to calm down. Through the kitchen window, I could see the three women talking in hushed tones. Were they discussing me, analyzing my behavior, planning some kind of intervention? My phone buzzed with a text from Travis. Thinking about you, hope you're having a good weekend. I smiled despite my frustration and typed back, missing you, can't wait to see you again. Tomorrow night, I know a little place outside town where we won't run into anyone you know. My heart raced. Yes, I'll figure out an excuse. Can't wait to hold you again. I was so absorbed in my phone that I didn't hear the back door open behind me. Everything okay out here? I spun around to find Gerald watching me, his expression unreadable. Had he seen me texting? Could he read my messages from where he stood? Fine, I said quickly, shoving my phone into my pocket. Just needed some fresh air. It's a beautiful evening, he agreed, stepping up beside me at the porch railing. Good night for thinking. We stood in silence for a moment, and I felt like he was waiting for me to say something, confess something. Gerald, is there something you want to ask me? He turned to study my face. I'm worried about my son and my granddaughter. Maya seems anxious lately, like she's picking up on tension at home. All families go through rough patches, I said defensively. Yes, they do. The question is whether people work through them together or look for escape routes. My cheeks burned. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything, Lenora. I'm stating facts. Elliot is miserable. Maya is confused. And you're acting like a woman with secrets. How dare you? I spent 30 years as a cop, Gerald interrupted. I know when someone's lying. The question is what you're lying about and why. I felt tears of anger and frustration welling up. I'm not lying about anything. I'm tired of being treated like a suspect in my own family. Then maybe you should ask yourself why everyone's so suspicious. With that, he turned and walked back into the house, leaving me alone on the porch with my racing heart and guilty conscience. When we got home that night, Elliot was unusually quiet. He helped Maya with her bath and bedtime routine, then disappeared into his office without saying goodnight. I found him there an hour later, staring at his computer screen. What are you working on? I asked from the doorway. Just some research, he replied without turning around. Research for what? Nothing important, just looking into some things. Something in his tone made my blood run cold, but I forced myself to sound casual. Well, don't stay up too late. You need your sleep. As I headed upstairs, I caught a glimpse of his computer screen. It looked like he was reading articles about infidelity and divorce, but I couldn't be sure from that distance. That night, I lay awake planning my excuse for tomorrow's dinner with Travis. Another girls' night, a work event, a family emergency. I settled on a work story, The clinic was hosting a continuing education seminar for the staff, and attendance was mandatory. Elliot wouldn't question something work-related, especially if I complained about having to stay late. As I drifted off to sleep, I pushed away the guilt and doubt that threatened to surface. I deserved happiness. I deserved to feel desired and appreciated. If my husband and his family couldn't understand that, it was their problem, not mine. Monday morning brought new challenges. I'd barely settled at my reception desk when Sophie appeared with a cup of coffee and a concerned expression. "We need to talk," she said, setting the coffee beside my keyboard. "Good morning to you too," I replied, trying to keep things light. "Lenora, I'm worried about you. You've been acting strange lately, and after what I saw on Friday..." My stomach dropped. "What did you see on Friday?" "You and Travis in the parking lot. It looked pretty intense." I'd forgotten about our brief conversation after work on Friday. Travis had stopped by to confirm our dinner plans, and we'd talked by his car for maybe 5 minutes. Apparently, that was enough to raise Sophie's suspicions. "We were just talking about a supply order," I lied. "He needed some clarification on what we needed." Sophie's expression told me she wasn't buying it. "Lenora, I've known you for 6 years. I can tell when you're lying." "I'm not. You're glowing lately. Your whole demeanor has changed. You're dressing differently, wearing more makeup, checking your phone constantly. Those are classic signs." I felt cornered and defensive. "Signs of what?" "You know what?" We stared at each other across my desk, the unspoken accusation hanging between us like a toxic cloud. "I can't believe you'd think that about me," I said finally. "I'm married. I have a daughter." "Married people have affairs all the time, Lenora. It doesn't make you a monster, but it does make you human. And humans make mistakes." "I haven't made any mistakes." Sophie sighed. "Look, I'm not judging you. If you're unhappy with Elliot, that's understandable. But sneaking around isn't the answer. You need to either work on your marriage or end it honestly." "There's nothing to work on because nothing is happening," I insisted. "Fine, but if something were happening, I'd tell you to be careful. Office affairs have a way of exploding, and when they do, everyone gets hurt." After Sophie walked away, I sat at my desk feeling shaken. If my best friend could see through my lies so easily, who else suspected? Was I being too obvious? I spent the morning being extra professional with every client and vendor who came through the door. When Travis arrived with a delivery around noon, I barely acknowledged him beyond a polite, "Good afternoon." But he lingered at my desk after completing his paperwork, and I could feel Sophie watching us from across the room. "Are we still on for tonight?" he asked quietly. "I don't think that's a good idea," I whispered back. "Why not? Did something happen?" "People are starting to talk." Travis glanced around the clinic, then leaned closer. "Let them talk. What we have is special, Lenora. Don't let other people's jealousy ruin it." His words sent a thrill through me despite my anxiety. He was right. What we had was special. Why should I let Sophie's suspicion stop me from being happy? "Okay," I agreed, "but we need to be more careful." "I'll pick you up at the mall. Park near the food court and I'll meet you there at 7. The plan felt safer than having him pick me up at home or work. I could tell Elliot I was going shopping after my work seminar, and no one would see us together. That afternoon, I called Elliot to set up my alibi. "Hi, honey. I won't be home until late tonight. The clinic is hosting a continuing education seminar on new insurance procedures. It's mandatory for all staff." "On a Monday night?" Elliot sounded surprised. "I know, it's annoying, but Dr. Martinez scheduled it when the speaker was available. I should be home by 10 or so." "Okay, I'll handle dinner and Maya's homework." "Thanks. You're the best." The lie came so easily that it scared me a little. When had I become so comfortable with deception? At 6:30, I drove to the mall and parked near the food court as planned. My heart pounded as I waited for Travis, checking my reflection in the rearview mirror and reapplying lipstick. He appeared right on time, looking handsome in dark jeans and a leather jacket. When he slid into my passenger seat, the car filled with his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made my head spin. "You look beautiful," he said, leaning over to kiss my cheek. "Ready for an adventure?" The restaurant he'd chosen was 40 minutes outside town, a cozy Italian place with dim lighting and intimate booths. It was perfect for a romantic dinner, and I felt like I was living in a movie as Travis ordered wine and told me stories about his travels for work. "I've been thinking about you all day," he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "About us." "What about us?" "About what this could become if we weren't so worried about other people's opinions." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe it's time to stop sneaking around. Maybe it's time to be honest about what we want." The wine had made me bold. "And what do we want?" "Each other. Really, truly, without all the lies and complications." I knew he was talking about leaving Elliot, about choosing him over my marriage. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. "It's complicated," I said. "I have Maya to think about. Kids are resilient. She'd rather have a happy mom than parents who are miserable together." "Elliot and I aren't miserable. We're just going through a rough patch." "Are you trying to convince me or yourself?" I didn't have an answer for that. The drive back to the mall was quiet, both of us lost in thought. When Travis pulled up beside my car, he turned to face me. "I don't want to pressure you, Lenora, but I need to know if this is going somewhere, or if I'm just a distraction from your real life." "You're not a distraction," I said quickly. You make me feel alive again." "Then prove it. Stop treating this like some dirty secret and start treating it like what it is, love." The word hung between us like a challenge. Love. Was that what this was? "I need time to think," I said. "Don't think too long. I won't wait forever." He kissed me deeply before I got out of his car, and I drove home in a daze. Love. The possibility both thrilled and terrified me. I arrived home at 9:45, earlier than expected. The house was quiet, with lights on in the living room and kitchen. I found Elliot at the kitchen table, with his laptop open and papers scattered around him. "How was the seminar?" he asked without looking up. "Boring but informative. Lots of new insurance codes to memorize." He made a note on one of his papers. "What are you working on?" "Just some financial planning, reviewing our accounts, insurance policies, that sort of thing." Something about his tone made me nervous. "Is everything okay? Are we having money problems?" "No, nothing like that. Just want to make sure everything's in order." I kissed the top of his head and headed upstairs, but his words echoed in my mind. Why was he suddenly so interested in our finances? Was he planning something? In our bedroom, I changed into pajamas and washed my face, studying my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Did I look different? Could Elliot tell I'd been with another man? When I climbed into bed, Elliot was still downstairs. I could hear him moving around, opening and closing drawers, talking quietly on the phone. Who would he be calling at 10 o'clock at night? I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew it was morning, and Elliot was getting dressed for work. He seemed distracted, checking his phone constantly, and barely speaking during breakfast. "Is everything okay?" I asked as he gathered his things. "Fine, just a busy day ahead." After he left, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The way he looked at me, the way he avoided eye contact, the mysterious late-night phone call. It all added up to something I didn't want to acknowledge. At work, Sophie was cooler than usual, professional but distant. Travis didn't show up with any deliveries, and I found myself checking my phone constantly for messages from him. Finally, around noon, he texted, "Missed you today. Dinner tomorrow?" I started to type yes, but stopped. Something felt different today, like the walls were closing in around me. Maybe I should slow things down, be more careful. "Let me check my schedule," I replied instead. "Don't overthink this, beautiful. Life's too short." He was right, of course. Life was too short to spend it feeling unappreciated and ignored. I deserved happiness, and Travis made me happy. But as I sat at my desk that afternoon, I couldn't shake the feeling that my carefully constructed world was beginning to crumble around me. By Wednesday evening, the tension at home had become unbearable. Elliot barely spoke to me except when Maya was around, and even then, his responses felt forced and cold. I caught him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking, his expression unreadable but intense. I'd agreed to meet Travis for dinner again, using another work excuse, this time a team-building event at a local restaurant. The lies were getting easier, but they were also getting more elaborate, and I worried about keeping my story straight. Maya was in her room doing homework when I announced my plans to leave. "Another work thing?" Elliot asked from his position on the couch, laptop balanced on his knees. "Unfortunately, yes. Dr. Martinez thinks team bonding will improve office morale." "Interesting. What restaurant?" The question caught me off guard. Elliot had never asked for specifics before. That new steakhouse on Maple Street. You know, the one that used to be a bookstore." "Right. What time should I expect you home?" "Probably around 10, maybe 10:30 if the service is slow." He nodded and returned to his laptop, but I noticed him typing something as I gathered my purse and keys. Was he making a note of my story? The steakhouse Travis had chosen was on the opposite side of town from where I'd told Elliot I'd be. It was upscale and romantic, with soft lighting and private booths that made me feel like we were the only two people in the world. "You look stressed," Travis observed after we'd ordered drinks. "Everything okay at home?" "Elliot's been acting strange lately, distant and suspicious. Maybe he knows." The possibility sent a chill through me. "He can't know. I've been so careful." "Have you? Because you seem pretty rattled for someone who's been careful." I took a large sip of wine, trying to calm my nerves. "He's just been asking more questions, paying more attention to my schedule. It's probably nothing. Or it's everything." Travis reached across the table to take my hand. Maybe this is the universe telling us it's time to stop hiding. "I can't just leave my husband, Travis. It's not that simple." "Why not? You're miserable with him. We're amazing together. What's complicated about choosing happiness?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Elliot's name appeared on the screen, and my blood turned to ice. "I should take this," I said, stepping away from the table. "Hello?" "Hi, honey. How's the team building going?" "It's fine. We just ordered dinner. Why are you calling?" "Maya wanted to say goodnight. She's worried because you didn't kiss her goodbye." My heart clenched with guilt. In my rush to meet Travis, I'd forgotten to say a proper goodbye to my daughter. "Put her on," I said, walking toward the restaurant's entrance for better reception. "Mummy?" Maya's small voice came through the phone. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm sorry I didn't say goodnight properly." "It's okay. Are you having fun at your work dinner?" "Sure, baby. It's just boring grown-up stuff. You be good for Daddy, okay?" "Okay. I love you, Mummy." "I love you too, Maya. Sweet dreams." When Elliot came back on the line, his voice was different, harder. "Lenora, what's the name of that restaurant again?" "What?" "The steakhouse on Maple Street. What's it called?" I panicked. I'd made up the location on the spot and had no idea what restaurants were actually on Maple Street. Why do you need to know?" "Just curious. You've been going to so many new places lately." "It's called Morton's," I lied, naming the first steakhouse chain that came to mind. "Interesting, because I just drove by Maple Street, and Morton's closed down 6 months ago." My heart stopped. He'd been checking up on me. "I must have gotten the street name wrong," I said quickly. "You know how bad I am with directions." "Right. Well, enjoy your team building. Don't stay out too late." The line went dead, and I stood outside the restaurant shaking. He knew. Somehow, Elliot knew I was lying. When I returned to the table, Travis took one look at my face and frowned. "What happened?" "My husband is checking up on me. He drove by the restaurant I said I'd be at." "Shit, what did you tell him?" that I got the location wrong, but I don't think he believed me. Travis was quiet for a moment, swirling his wine in its glass. Maybe this is for the best. What do you mean? Maybe it's time for everything to come out in the open. You can't keep living this double life forever. I'm not ready for that. Then when will you be ready? When he hires a private investigator? When he files for divorce? When he takes your daughter away? The last possibility hit me like a physical blow. He wouldn't do that. Wouldn't he? You're cheating on him, Lenora. In a custody battle, that matters. I felt sick. I'd been so focused on my own happiness that I hadn't considered the legal implications of my actions. I need to go home, I said, standing abruptly. Lenora, wait. No, this was a mistake. All of this was a mistake. I left Travis sitting at the table and drove home in a panic, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if Elliot demanded a divorce? What if he tried to take Maya away from me? What if everyone found out about the affair? The house was dark when I arrived, except for a light in Elliot's office. I found him at his desk, surrounded by papers and photographs. When he looked up at me, his expression was cold and determined. We need to talk, he said. My legs felt weak. About what? About your team building dinner at a restaurant that doesn't exist. About your girls' nights with friends who weren't there. About the man who's been dropping you off in the middle of the night. The room spun around me. Elliot, I can explain. Can you? Because I have photos, Lenora. I have receipts. I have a timeline of every lie you've told me over the past month. He spread the papers across his desk like evidence in a criminal case. There were bank statements showing charges at restaurants I'd claimed not to visit, phone records showing calls I'd never mentioned, even photographs of me getting out of Travis's car. You hired someone to follow me, I whispered. I hired someone to find the truth, because my wife became a stranger and I needed to know why. I sank into the chair across from his desk, my carefully constructed world crashing down around me. How long have you known? I suspected after that first girls' night. Maya saw the car, remember? A black BMW, just like the one in these photos. It took me a while to connect all the dots, but once I started looking, the evidence was everywhere. Tears streamed down my face. Elliot, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen. You made choices, Lenora. You chose to lie to me, to betray our marriage, to risk our daughter's stability for what? Some excitement, some attention. You don't understand, I sobbed. You've been so distant, so cold. I felt invisible in my own home. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it. I tried to talk to you. You were always working, always distracted. When was the last time you told me I was beautiful? When was the last time you acted like you wanted to be married to me? Elliot's expression softened slightly. You're right. I haven't been the husband I should have been, but that didn't give you the right to betray our vows. What happens now? I asked, dreading the answer. Now we figure out how to protect Maya while we end this marriage. The words hit me like a physical blow. End our marriage? Elliot, please, we can work through this. I'll end things with Travis. I'll do whatever it takes. It's too late for that. The trust is broken, Lenora. I can't spend the rest of my life wondering if you're lying to me. Please, I begged, think about Maya. Think about our family. I am thinking about Maya. She deserves better than parents who lie and cheat and pretend everything's fine. I left his office that night knowing my marriage was over. Upstairs, I checked on Maya, who was sleeping peacefully in her bed, unaware that her world was about to change forever. As I lay in the guest bedroom, Elliot had made it clear I wasn't welcome in our marital bed. I realized that my pursuit of happiness had cost me everything I actually cared about. Travis had been wrong. Love wasn't worth destroying a family, but it was too late to take any of it back.